but today's session is on decolonising the curriculum. Our presenter is Amy Campbell from Leeds Beckett University. And Amy, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so as David said, this session is going to be about decolonising the curriculum. My name's Amy Campbell. I'm from Leeds Beckett University. I'm an information services librarian. And so I'm going to show you what the toolkit looks like. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share my screen with this software, but we'll see what happens. And there's going to be plenty of time for discussion. So I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts and ideas on this subject. So this is what this afternoon session looks like. I'm going to very quickly talk to you about our partnership with Talis Aspire. I'm then going to ask you a question to put in the chat or to shout out at me. I'll give you a demo of our reading list toolkit, then discuss some of the benefits and the challenges of the way we've approached this. I'll talk to you about some of my next steps, hopefully, with the toolkit, and then open it up for a discussion. So we've been working with Talis Aspire for over 4 years now. So it's very much embedded into the way we do things at Leeds Beckett, and it really drives the acquisitions of our print and e-resources. And my colleague Natalia Gordon has given me some of these stats, which has been really helpful. So we use Blackboard for our VLE, which I'll show you a little bit later. And the decolonising toolkit I'm going to demo for you was created in the summer of 2019. So pre-pandemic, but that might reveal why things aren't quite as up to date as they might have been. So a quick question for all of you. Why do you think it's important to diversify reading lists? If indeed you do, please feel free to put any of your ideas in the chat, or you might be able to unmute yourself and tell me. I'm not sure how this system works, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it will need to go into the chat, Amy.
Okay, fair enough. So I think this is a really big topic which lots of institutions are kind of approaching in different ways. So I think it's really important that we kind of share ideas here, because no one person or institution has all the solutions. Well, perhaps whilst you think of any thoughts you have, I might just move on and we can always return to this. So here are some of the reasons why I think it's important to diversify reading lists. The creation of our toolkit really came about because at a senior and central institutional level, a new access and participation plan was created and published. And the purpose of this was to ensure we were recruiting and crucially retaining our ethnically diverse students. So having that central plan really galvanised action across the university, and particularly in the library. And so this work came to me because I think I'm on the Libraries, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion group, and because of my role in the Learning Resources team, it felt like a good fit for me to take on this work. So I'm now going to demo our reading list. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible, Amy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is our toolkit. I'm just going to take us back a step so that you can see a bit of context as to where this is sitting. So this, as you can see, is our institution webpage. This is an internal site, Teach Learn, and My Beckett is the name of our VLE, which is powered by Blackboard. So the toolkit sits within this My Beckett guide site, and this really provides lots of information for our academics to make best use of the VLE for their modules and courses. And so there's lots of different guidance, and the toolkit sits within this reading list site. So these other guides have, many of them have been created by my colleague Natalia to get the best use out of creating a reading list. And then you can see here at the bottom is our toolkit. So it starts with an introduction, which just gives a bit of context and rationale for why the toolkit exists. And you can see here that we're using the acronym BAME, so Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic. Perhaps later we'll just mention that that is something of a contested term now, but this is what we used when we created the resource. And so further down, we have a whole suite of different guides. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just show you some of the key ones. So this first one, best practice in diversifying reading lists, is here. And this one was created by my former colleague, Tom Vors, who now works at Leeds Trinity University. And what he's done here is to collate lots of best practice from across the sector and just pull them together onto this one page. So you can see, for example, there's a similar toolkit from Bournemouth. There's one down here from Manchester Met. And so the point of this is just to basically signal that no one institution has all the answers, but by collating information from across the sector, we can make use of everyone's knowledge and expertise. So another one I wanted to show you is this student recommendations. So as you can see, this will be very familiar to you all as Talis Aspire users. This one is in Talis Aspire as a reading list, and it is a collection of print books and ebooks which our students have recommended that we purchase. Originally, the service which did that was called Beckett Books Extra. Then when the pandemic started, it became Request an ebook, because as I'm sure you all experienced, at the start and in the depths of the pandemic, we couldn't provide print books to students and we weren't purchasing new ones. Now this service has morphed again in recent weeks to integrate interlibrary loans with the student request services. And so this will be updated again. But the purpose of this list is firstly just to group together all the really brilliant resources that students are recommending to us, which are related to EDI. And hopefully this is helpful to our academics because they can go in, find a resource that is relevant to their modules, and as you all know about, can easily copy one onto their own reading lists. Secondly, I think it provides good evidence for doing this work in general because it demonstrates that our students are really interested in decolonising and broadening the curriculum. So hopefully this one reading list is doing two jobs. Now I'll also show you the searching for inclusive resources, which is here. So this is another one which Tom Vors created. So this one, as we can see, it helps staff to search for inclusive resources, both in external databases such as Scopus, but also internally within our own library, such as just pointing out some of the more diverse sections of the library, such as this one for post-colonialism. And then another useful bit is that it just helps academics understand how to search our discovery service using keywords. Now, since this guide was created, we have implemented a new library management system. So again, this section will have to be slightly updated. And then the last bit I just wanted to show you is this other reading list, BAME resources by subject area. So again, it's a reading list, but this one isn't just recommendations from students. These are resources which have been purchased in numerous ways. But the useful thing about this is I've just kind of grouped it into broad subject areas. So these aren't necessarily any one course or module, but hopefully a staff member can just dip in and have a look for some useful resources and, as before, easily copy them over onto their own reading lists. So that's very much the toolkit in a nutshell. I'll now just return to my slides. So I'll now talk about some of the benefits of the way we've done things at Leeds Beckett. Firstly, as you've seen, we're utilising the Teach Learn website, and this really encompasses all the support and guidance that we're giving to our researchers on how to teach effectively. So in libraries, I think we often talk about being where students are in terms of being at our most useful and engaging with them. And what we're trying to do here is to be where our academics are. And so hopefully we're just putting ourselves in the best place to reach them. Secondly, as you've seen, we've got a whole suite of guides, and this helps both the academics and us as a staff team, I think. So firstly, the different guides approach the topic of diversification from slightly different angles. And it just gives academics a chance to utilise things dependent on their own interest and their own time limitations. So the Talis reading lists are easy to use. You know, it's easy to copy resources from one list to another. But where an academic has a bit more time and is a bit more involved in this area, they can upskill themselves in terms of searching and using our discovery systems. And then in terms of how it helps our team, because we've got multiple guides, it means we can share the workload across the team. So as you saw, I was doing some of the work, my colleague Tom was doing the work. And I'm hoping that going forward, I can share this work with the wider team. And I think, you know, if you're going to do inclusive work, you need an inclusive range of people to contribute to the work. So it's really valuable and it improves the quality of the work if you can get a whole team on board. And in general, it's, you know, it'd be really good for us to get some academics on board and help us with this as well. Now some of the challenges, and there are quite a few, as you might imagine, with this type of work. So firstly, this is the biggest one for me, I suppose. I don't really feel qualified to create a toolkit of this kind. You know, and I wonder if anyone really feels qualified to do this work. And also, am I qualified to be telling academics how to construct their modules? I don't think so, really. But, you know, by working as a team and working as a sector, hopefully we can create the most useful guides possible and just find some confidence together. Another key challenge is having the time to maintain the sort of currency of these toolkit guides. So for example, I've just highlighted on this slide that this particular reading list hasn't been updated in 2 years. And that's partly because I've only recently returned from a sort of 18-month secondment, but also it's because the pandemic kind of changed all our team's priorities as was necessary. And this type of work, it's sometimes hard to make it a priority. So we really need kind of management buy-in and support to give us time to really make the most of these types of resources. Tom and I created a survey to try and garner some feedback on this toolkit. Some of the questions we asked included whether they found the toolkit valuable, would they recommend it to their colleagues, and just general questions about how, in general, they found resources for their modules. As you can see, we didn't get any responses, unfortunately. It was very disappointing. So that might suggest that the survey was open at the wrong time of the academic year. Perhaps the survey was in the wrong place, or perhaps more worryingly, it might suggest that the toolkit wasn't getting well used. And so this is definitely something that I want to return to in the future. So the next steps are for me to have a good refresh and update of the toolkit, and also just to kind of step back and think, is it fit for purpose? Do we need to take a different tack? But this is an opportunity, it's not just a challenge, because it gives us an opportunity to relaunch the toolkit, and this allows us to re-engage with staff and to students. So thank you very much for attending the session. I now welcome any questions you have for me, or if you want to offer any suggestions for what you'd like your institution to do, or to share what your institution is currently doing, I would really welcome that.
Hi, Amy. That was really interesting. Thank you. I've been making copious notes while we've been going. I'd echo what you said. If people want to put any questions, if they can put them in the chat. Amy, are you able to see the chat? I think you should be able to. Yeah. While we are just waiting for questions to appear in there, as I said, I made a lot of notes, and I suppose I wanted to ask, so you said the toolkit was created in summer 2019. Who was driving that toolkit to be created? Did it come from the library? Did it come from academics? Or did it come from the students requesting sort of more diversified lists? What was the driver behind that?
Yeah, so we had a discussion in our library's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion group about the access and participation plan, which had come from sort of governance in the institution. And so I think we just kind of thought about what we might be able to do to support the plan, and sort of came up with this idea. And we had 1 or 2 working group meetings to really kind of flesh out what to do and how to go about creating it, and then how to share out the workload.
Okay, interesting. There's a couple of comments there. There's one from Evelyn. The idea of having a starter for 10 with diverse resources sounds really good. There's a question from Louise. How did you advertise or promote your toolkit? Did you run any sessions for academics to help them to introduce the toolkit and ideas?
Yeah, it's interesting, Louise. I don't think we did very much, to be honest, to advertise and promote it at that time. And it's probably one of the issues we had in terms of getting people to answer our survey. You know, not many academics had actually seen it at that time. So I think, you know, now that I'm hoping to relaunch it, as it were, they're all things I'm going to really think about doing more and put a bit more sort of time and strategy into doing.
Okay. And we have a question from Andrew, and I have to say, I'm dying to hear the answer to this one as well. So I have a question about the link with your access and participation plan, which I think is great. Is there an evaluation step included within this? Do you have a way of demonstrating the effectiveness of creating more diverse reading lists?
Yeah, that is a really great question, Andrew. And I think potentially an issue, I don't want to blame the pandemic for everything because people seem to, don't they? But I think we anticipated that we would do some evaluation, but then the pandemic sort of hit and all of this work took a bit of a back seat. And in terms of just the access and participation plan in general, I haven't heard an awful lot about it in recent months. So I wonder if the university has slightly taken a back seat on that as well. But you know, evaluation is obviously really important in this area and in everything libraries do. You know, there's got to be a way, hasn't there, of us to evaluate if we've been successful or if we're sort of going down the wrong path with something.
Okay, I'm still looking at the chat. We've come to the end of the three. I'm going to ask another question, if that's okay, partly to you, Amy, but partly also to the people on the call. So you said at one stage, you sort of asked yourself, am I qualified, you know, to do this, you know, and your sort of reluctance to tell academics what they should and shouldn't be using. And we hear that a lot from people that use Talis Aspire. I suppose my question to you and to the wider group would be, who is qualified? Who is the person that you think, or people that should be doing this? And given that you'd included guidance from other universities in your toolkit, do you think there's an opportunity for collaboration here between different institutions?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a Leeds Beckett race forum. So that's a large group of academics, so, you know, BAME academics, but other allies across the institution who meet on a sort of monthly or schedule to talk about different issues across the institution. And so there are very senior academics within that forum who I think would have a lot more knowledge and skill than me to create a toolkit, but there's always a risk of just the same people being asked to do all the work, especially when it comes to diversity work. And, you know, even I potentially was asked to do this because I'm mixed race. I don't know. So it's tricky, isn't it? You can't just pick on the same people to do the work. And so I think it is about collaboration. And if the sector was happy to collaborate together and share ideas, I think that would be great.
And there's a question from Samantha, which I think you partially addressed, but picking up on who is qualified and involved, how was the working group made up?
So it was mostly staff from the learning resources team. I believe there was one other person who is in our learning technologies team, but he's also part of the EDI library group. So he also has an interest in these types of topics. So it was mostly people who either had a real interest in EDI or members of the learning resources team.
Okay, and Andrew's just added to that, saying, I think a small group of members from different backgrounds would be a good start, and people who are interested rather than picked. And your colleague Karen has said, what a wonderful job you're doing managing these questions. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. I didn't pay her, honestly.
We've got a comment from Katie. It makes sense to get insight from a diverse group of people when it comes to diversifying anything. This is likely to include people who aren't qualified. It doesn't necessarily mean that their insight is any less valuable. So I don't know if you find that reassuring or...
Yeah, it is reassuring. Thanks, Katie. And, you know, we did try and work a little bit with the Students' Union as well. But again, it's people are busy, aren't they? And they have a lot of different priorities. So it was quite difficult to get sort of long-term engagement with them. But I think because this work is ultimately for our students, it was really important to try and get some student union buy-in, and that's definitely what I'll try and do again once I start updating these pages.
And that is something that I know I've heard on support calls with a couple of universities, that actually in some institutions it has been student driven. You know, this is what we want to see. There's a couple more questions here, or comments here. There's one from Samantha about, did you experience any barriers? So Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong, but I take that to mean, was there some sort of resistance to the work you were doing?
Yeah, I didn't get any barriers as far as I could tell. But again, you know, sometimes that makes me wonder how engaged the academics actually were, you know, because they will always speak their mind, won't they? And so, yeah, that just makes me wonder how much take up there actually was of the toolkit.
We have quite the discussion developing now. So there's a comment from Evelyn. I feel like we need to also apply pressure to publishers to find and publish good research from diverse authors. And then Andrew has commented, you mentioned other universities that have been doing work on this. Was there any university that stood out to you as good practice and that you drew inspiration on?
Yeah, I think I just have a quick glance back, but yeah, some of the ones that Tom included in the best practice were particularly good. I think, yeah, I think it was Manchester Metropolitan had quite comprehensive help and support for their academics, and UCL as well have done quite a lot of work on liberating the curriculum, as they call it. So those two did stand out.
I'm just looking at the attendees list as we speak, because I know that Goldsmiths have done a lot of work in this area as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And there's a question from Samantha again, or to flip it, how enabled were you by others? Sorry, Samantha, I think you might have posted that 30 seconds ago. Could you elaborate on that at all, please?
I think in a way I had a lot of freedom with this work. So in some ways that's enabling, but in some ways that is another reason I felt a bit rabbit in headlights about where to start. So I didn't get a lot of steering, which is good and bad sometimes, isn't it? And in the role, it's not like I'm very senior, you know, and so that's quite it can be quite scary to be putting something out there for the whole institution to see when you don't personally feel like it's your role, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And there's a lovely comment here. It's not your job to make the academics sort their lists and are teaching out. We're just trying to help.
Yeah, and that's very true. And yeah, you've got to just put in perspective. I do have to put in perspective for myself and think, you know, I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm just trying to help.
We have another query from Andrew, who's from University of West London. How does your director advocate for this strategically?
I don't know, Andrew. Sorry. I don't know. I will ask her.
Maybe I should have a chat. Okay, does anyone have any more comments to put, either questions for Amy, or if you want to speak to any of her other questions there about what your institution is doing and what you would like them to do? So there's two Andrews on this call. This is the other Andrew. Do you find the list you created is well viewed?
That's a good question. I will just have a quick look. I haven't had a look in a while.
Yeah, Andrew's just qualified his question with, I love lists that we create like this for academics to view, just wondering the uptake.
The BAME resources by subject area list has had 65 views, which is okay. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. And the other one has had about 30. So yeah, it's a good start.
We have a comment from Lisa. I think what you and Tom have created is fantastic and a great addition to the university. Has said, as Evelyn said, you can lead a horse to water.
Yeah, and to be honest, my secondment was working in the open access team where I worked a bit closer with the academics. So yeah, it's very much right. Lead a horse to water.
Okay, we will make a final call for questions. And I was going to say, Amy, I think you've got a final slide.
Yeah, just my contact details. If anyone has any questions or comments after the event, I'd love to hear from you. And if anyone wants to start a group together to work on this, that would be amazing.
Okay, and we're getting some thank yous coming through now. So sounds like we're about done. So I guess it just falls to me to say thank you, Amy, for your presentation today, and apologies for the slight confusion at the start, but we got there. And yeah, we've had some good discussion in the chat. Hopefully everybody has found it useful. And yeah, if you want to get in touch with Amy to find out more, her details are on the slide on screen now.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming and for all your questions and comments. It's really great to see.
Okay, thanks for attending, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.